All right, so these are gonna be the 5 mistakes that you want to avoid when you're running your Turo business. Now listen, we have a fleet of over 50 cars. We see a lot of mistakes. We've made mistakes in our own fleet. We've seen a lot of the people that we work with make mistakes. Big thing I'm gonna tell you about in this video are what are the 5 biggest mistakes that we see and how you can avoid them. You guys know me, Peter at Car Rental Coach. Big thing here is that we consult with clients every day that are looking to grow a rental car business and that are very serious about it. If you think that that's you, then I want you to go to carrentalcoach.com, fill out the 60-second survey. That's gonna tell me if you're qualified to work with us. Now, if you are, you'll be getting on a call with me. I'd love to dive into your rental business, or if you're looking to get into this business, love to talk to you to see if there's a way that we could help you. Also, want you to make sure that you click the subscribe button so you don't miss any videos. All right, so the first mistake that I'm gonna talk about is buying overpriced cars. Now, this is something that I've delved into a little bit more in another video, but to give you guys an idea of what I'm talking about, first of all, car prices since 2019 have risen across the board about 30%. Sure, it's something a lot of you are aware of, due to inflation and a lot of other things that have been going on. But to kind of give you an example of what this looks like when you're paying for cars the right way versus when you're not, here's an example. Let's say that you buy a car for $10,000 cash, right? It's an economy car. You look at it, you're like, okay, I'm pretty confident that this car is going to produce $1,000 a month in revenue, right? Okay, $1,000 a month in revenue. That means that we're at about $12,000 for the year. Let's say after all of your expenses, we'll hit them roughly at about 50%. Then your car has $6,000 in profit. So off of that $10,000, that means that you made a 60% return on your money in the first year. That also means that once you hit year 2, that car will be paid off and it will be purely profit. Now, for everybody listening, this is the way that we buy all of our cars now, since we're at a total of 56 cars at the moment. That is the way that we do it. It makes the most sense to us. That's an example of buying the car right. Now, so let's say that car is a 2019 Mirage, $10,000. Pretty good. You're making about 60% return on your investment in the first year. You're making a profit year 2. Now, let's say that you buy that same car. You should have bought it for 10, but you go to the dealership, you're all excited. They see that you're a newbie in the business. You're like, hey, you're talking to the sales guy. I'm really ready to get started. I'm excited. I'm ready to go. The sales guy sees you and he's like, oh, this is going to be an easy person to make some money on. And you haven't done your research now. You've been watching a lot of the Car Rental Coach videos. You're new to it. So you just go out, you want that car. Sales guy tells you, he comes back, he's like, hey, listen, this car is 2019 Mirage. I can give you a great deal on it, $18,000. You're like, okay, well, 18,000's not bad. You negotiate with them a little bit. Let's say that you get the car down to 16,000. Okay, you buy that car for $16,000. You're pretty happy, right? Well, here's a little bit of the difference. That car, which should have been bought for 10, you buy it for 16. The amount of rental income that the car is going to produce, and this should go without being said, it's not going to change just because you paid more money. Now, as I talked about in the last video, you can go and try to get more money on a daily basis. Then you're going to be even more frustrated. Trust me, I've done it. I've seen a lot of the people that we work with do it. You're going to be mad because you're like, man, I bought this car for the 16,000. It's not renting out. I need to rent it out more on a daily basis. So you up the price. Now your car's not getting rented out at all. It's only renting for 5 to 7 days a month. You're mad. You're like, oh, this sucks. This business isn't for me. It's not the way to do it. And to dive a little bit more into that example, that $16,000 price that you paid, the car is still only producing $12,000 a year in rental income. Off of that $12,000, it's only producing $6,000 worth of profit. Now, instead of you getting that 60% return on your money, you're getting about a 40% return on your money, which closer to 35, which is it's not the 60 that it could have been. This is why what you purchase the car for is super, super important. Now, that's an example with cash. That's the way that we do it now. To give you guys another example, there's also the way that you can do it with credit. Let's say with credit, there's that $10,000 car, you go out and get it. And for anybody that's into financial education and understanding how to use debt to your advantage, this is something that'll make sense for you. you could go out and get that $10,000 car. You only put $1,000 down. Car still produces $12K, $6,000 worth of profit. Now you've got a 6x return on the money that you put into that car. This is something that can work, yes. The biggest thing that's the difference between cars and what we would say in real estate properties is that while real estate will appreciate, of course, there's things that you have to do to get it to appreciate, but real estate typically is going to appreciate. Cars are not going to appreciate. Normally they're going to depreciate. So typically when we finance, the big thing is that when you go and sell the car and you have to get rid of the car, you want to be able to break even on it. Typically you're not making money, especially because of the wear and tear and everything on the vehicle. With that in mind, typically what we recommend is that you want to get cars anywhere from, at the very least, 10% below MSRP. Really, you'd like it to be 20 to 30% below MSRP. When you get the car for that amount, then there are a lot of calculators and things that you can use, depreciation calculators, which will give you an idea of how much of the car is worth based on how many miles that are put on it. We can link a few of those in the description of this video. But the point that I'm making here is that when you look at those, you'd like it to break even. The 20 to 30% mark under MSRP is when it does break even. So for those of you that are new to this channel, MSRP stands for Manufacturer Suggested Retail Price. Good thing to know when using some of these terms, because sometimes I get ahead of myself. I forget that there are people that are newer to this business. So it was just told to me that not everybody knows. So wanted to explain that to you guys. So when you do go in and you're negotiating price and everything, you kind of have an idea for exactly what you should be looking for. This is a debate that we have with a lot of people, especially in the industry, and a lot of people that are newer to our program, is when it comes to trackers. Now, there are two types of trackers. Anyone that's been on this channel is familiar, but I will reiterate it for the people that are newer to this channel. So there's tracker number one, which it's basically a tracker that you plug into a port that's right under the steering wheel. This tracker, it's good. It tells you where the car is, how fast the car is going. Some of them will tell you the weather conditions of that day. It'll kind of tell you how the person's braking. It'll tell you a little bit about their driver behavior. It's a good base tracker. They're not that expensive. Typically they run 30 to 40 bucks. Super easy to install. You just plug them in. Now, why I'm not a fan of this tracker. The issue with this one is that, let's say you're excited. That's the whole theme of this video, right? You're starting out, you're excited. You get a car, you put it on the platform. Let's say maybe it's your third rental. Your car's going out, you're pumped. Maybe let's say this is day 15. Well, person gets the car, let's say they get the car one day, they're supposed to return it 3 days later. They tell you, hey, look, I'm visiting some family. It'll be back on this day, I promise. Well, that day hits and an hour comes and goes past the time the car is going to be dropped off. And you're reasonable. You understand. You send them a message. They're like, oh, Peter, I'm so sorry. I am going to get the car to you. I'm stuck in traffic. Next thing you know, you look at your phone, 2 hours have gone by. Well, now you're like, hey, where's my car? And they're like, oh, I'm here, but I am going to be there soon. Now, what they don't know is that you watch the car rental coach videos. So you go and you look on your computer or on your phone and you're like, they're telling me that they're only 25 minutes out. I'm in Pennsylvania and they're in Cincinnati, Ohio. So they're not 25 minutes out. They're not even an hour out. So the next thing that you're going to do is you're going to reach out to Turo. You're going to let Turo know, hey, look, this guest was supposed to return my vehicle at this time. They did not. The reason why I say to reach out to Turo is I'm saving you guys a lot of time here. This is advice that somebody should pay me for. You keep going back and forth with the guest. Trust me, I've done it 1,000 times. You're not going to get anywhere. They're going to keep telling you they're going to return the car and they're not. When you reach out to Turo, now Turo, they will communicate with your guest and you will get compensated for those extra hours and or days that the person has the car. Now, the reason why I'm not a fan of these trackers that you just put into the port is, number one, for people that have malicious intent and they want to steal your car, I'm pretty sure they would do enough research to know that they could just rip that tracker out. Okay, let's say that it's somebody that's not nefarious. They're just falling upon hard times, right? They need a car just for a few days extra. Sure, I've been through hardship myself. We can empathize with that. But we also run a business, so we need money to come in. And we might have somebody else that's renting that car. When you tell Turo, they can go and send out a private investigator. Typically, they don't do that until it's about 24 to 48 hours after the car was going to be returned. If you show them where the car is, they can go find it. Now, with these trackers that just go into the port, the car can keep moving. So it's going to be very difficult for that private investigator to find the car. Now, on the contrary, the trackers that we install on all 56 of our cars and we recommend for everybody that we work with is Hardwire Trackers. Now, the debate that we typically run into with people in the industry and with some people that we work with when we're first starting out is they're like, that's a little expensive. It's around $100 for the tracker itself, another $100 to get it installed. But what I will tell you, when this tracker saves you, because it has saved me numerous times, that same person where they're saying they were visiting family, they're in Cincinnati, and they haven't returned your car, let's say that 2 hours turns into 2 days. You tell Turo goes out to find that the car keeps moving around, it's tough, right? Now, here's the real thing where you're at a loss, and this is where it's a big mistake. They're driving around that car. Well, you had another person that was gonna rent that car that you weren't gonna get more money from, right? Turo they only compensate you to a certain amount when something like this happens. They kind of negotiate with you. They're like, hey, it is what it is. If you have a Hardwire Tracker, now yes, it is a significantly bigger investment in the beginning. It'll be around $200 to get the tracker installed. But if the car is in Cincinnati, you now have the option to turn the car off. It has a kill switch. So now the car, it won't move. There's nothing the person can do to get it to move. Now a private investigator goes out, they get your car, or maybe you go out with them, you get your car, you bring it back. Now you can get your car back on the road as soon as possible, and you can get more rental income. That is the most important thing about it for me. Another thing, and I've spoken about this in a previous video, is being able to monitor driver behavior. Now, my infamous story is I had somebody that got into an accident. This was last year. They got into an accident, and in the police report, they told the police officer that the tires were bald on the car that I had them rented out. The tires were bald, insurance claim gets filed and everything. The insurance company says, well, were your tires bald? Well, I'm like, well, it was up to Turo's standards. I made sure the car was inspected, it was looked at, everything was fine. Insurance company's like, but even the police officer wrote in the report that the tires did look a little bit worn. Here's where having a tracker makes the difference. I was able to look on the tracker and I saw at the time of the accident, I could see the weather, it was pouring down rain, and my guest was driving the car at 95 miles an hour. Well, if somebody's driving at 95 miles an hour in the rain, it doesn't matter what kind of tires that you have, most likely you might get into an accident. So I was able to provide that to the insurance company, and the insurance rep told me after, that was a big reason why they actually took my claim, because it was me proving that that car was up to standard and that I was not the one at fault there. Another big reason why very big into trackers. Another big mistake that people make is not taking enough photos. While you may be very familiar with your 2021 Nissan Sentra or your 2020 Dodge Durango, not everybody else is. So while you know exactly what it looks like on the inside and on the outside, your guest doesn't know that. A huge mistake that I see is that a lot of people will only take pictures of the outside of the vehicle, and they only take pictures of the front and the two sides. Well, when I'm renting a car, I want to see what the whole car looks like. I want to see the inside. I want to see the front, the back, the sides. I kind of want to get an idea of what I'm going to be driving around. And of course, as I said, you want to be standing about 12 to 15 feet behind wherever you're taking the pictures, because when you upload the pictures to Turo, it zooms in significantly on them. So you want to make sure that you are taking the proper pictures, right? Now, this is a little bit of a subjective opinion, but for me, when it comes to renting out nice cars, I say it's a mistake to start out with, because when I start into a business that I'm unfamiliar with, I want to go into it as low cost as possible. Always my philosophy is that I want a business to be able to sustain itself after the initial amount of capital that I put into it. I want it to be where it is a profitable business moving forward. So the next big thing I want to talk about is renting out nice cars. And it's a mistake that I see a lot of people make. When I start out in any sort of business, my big thing is that I want the business to be self-sustainable. Of course, I always put capital into it to begin with to be able to pay for the initial expenses and everything, but I want to get into businesses that are going to be profitable off the rip. And it kind of reminds me, before I keep elaborating on this point, when I was 16 years old, there was a lesson that I learned. It was from a book called How to Make Money in Stocks by William J. O'Neill. He's an equity market manager At the time that I read the book, it was like 400 money managers worldwide, something like that. The biggest takeaway that I took from this book is just because you like a stock and you really like the company and you really like the idea, that does not mean that that is the most logical stock for you to purchase. Now, in my 16-year-old brain, I'm like, oh, that makes sense. So just because I love iPhones, it doesn't mean Apple would be the best thing for me to buy. Well, of course, that would prove wrong. I guess a better example would be, hey, look, I love Yahoo Search. Oh, well, Yahoo Search didn't turn out very well. That's a better example for you guys. The point that I'm making here is that just because you love Mercedes or you love BMW or you love Audi, it might not be the best car for your area. And of course, it's one thing if you're telling me, hey, Peter, look, I have a connection at Mercedes and I can get the cars for 20 to 30% MSRP. I'm gonna say, hey, go for it. That's what I like to hear. But if you're just going to a dealership and trying to negotiate with the guy, you get a car for 10% under MSRP. George and I kind of have an idea for exactly how much cars will rent for, kind of what kind of car that it is based on how many cars that we have and how much market research we do. There's kind of a range that cars are gonna rent for. Just because you buy a more expensive car, it doesn't mean that you're gonna get the ideal money that you wanna get out of that car. And just because you like a certain brand over other brands does not mean that that is the best brand for you to start out with, especially in a business. Now, everybody's goals for a business are different, right? If you're running this business and you're like, well, I just wanna drive around a couple different cars. If I can make enough money to pay the car payment, then that's good for me. Then hey, do what you want. Go out and get a nice car. I'm in this business to make money, to make a profit, to help support me and support my family. That's the biggest reason why I'm in it, just to let you guys know. But hey, if you're a person where you want to drive around nice cars, pay the payments, sounds good to me. I mean, don't get me wrong, I love those cars too. But for my business, I just recommend against it. I always say that you want to get in for the least amount of cost possible and turn a profit. Now, another mistake that I see people make, and I almost made this mistake myself, is when you're signing a lot of agreements and things when you're starting out, specifically with insurance companies, make sure that you read the agreements, especially when it comes to, I'll say, off rental insurance. A lot of people when they first start, and we have somebody that we're working with now, they're like, oh, can I just put the car under my personal insurance when it's not being rented through Turo? I mean, that is a solution. We always recommend against it, and I'm gonna tell you why. Typically in personal insurance agreements, they have it on there that this car is not allowed to be used for anything rental purpose related. So even though you're only covering it for when the car is not being rented, that is grounds for them to drop you. Same thing, I mentioned this in another video with gap insurance that I ran into. Most gap insurances do not cover car sharing. So when you go and you get gap insurance, you better make sure that it covers car sharing, especially if you're getting financing for your vehicles. Now, really to go over, we talked about a lot in these videos. The 5 mistakes that I want you to avoid is 1, don't buy overpriced cars. Number 2, make sure that you're getting a tracker, please. It's only gonna save you a lot of time, a lot of energy, and a lot of effort. Number 4, don't buy cars on an emotional basis. Buy them off of a logical basis. Number 5, make sure that you read the terms of service. I mean, it's important. It could possibly save you some money down the road. And listen, I want to thank everybody for coming and watching these videos. I hope that we're giving you as much value as possible. Now, if you think that you're the person where you're serious, right? You want to move forward in this business, I want you to go to carrentalcoach.com. Fill out the 60-second survey. If me and my team think that you're qualified to work with us, then I will personally get on a phone call with you, talk to you about your business, and see if there's a way that we can help you. Listen, again, thank you so much for watching the videos. I'll see you guys on the next one.